Hello, I'm John,
And I'm Jess.
and this is the Graceless Living podcast. So, welcome to the very first Graceless Living podcast with me, John,
And Jess.
and Jess. New format we're toying with.
Yeah, very first time.
Yeah, well, this may well be the second time we recorded this because someone didn't press record properly.
No, it wouldn't be a Graceless Living podcast if there wasn't some sort of mishap. All you have to do is check the history of our YouTube videos to see that something always happens.
Yeah. So, this is just going to be a bit of a chat between the two of us, and that's it really. Not done much more planning than that. So, I'm John, I'm 29, I'm from Cheshire, I'm a musician, a brass band musician, and I'm also a chemical engineer. How about you, Jess?
I am Jess. I am originally from Northern Ireland, currently living in England. I am 27 years old and I work with children.
Excellent. So...
Oh, there's one more important thing that I do.
Oh, yes.
I am the author of gracelessliving.co.uk. That's gracelessliving.co.uk.
It's a shameless plug you've done right there, but that's fine.
Yeah.
This is your podcast after all.
Well, yeah, and I mean, people already know that if they're already on the website, I suppose. But, you know, if they're coming from somewhere else, yeah.
So let's have a brief chat about what we've been doing, shall we?
Yeah, let's just dive right in.
So I originally, the title of this podcast was Jess and John talk about things they've read, watched, eaten, written, thought about, achieved, squandered, and laughed at. So covers...
It's a really catchy title.
Most of everything. So first of all then, have you been reading anything? What have you been reading, Jess?
I have been reading. So, I like to be a little bit cute sometimes, I suppose. And I suggested that we go on a blind book date. What is the blind book date, John?
Well, you forced me to go to Waterstones, and then
all the hardships in your life.
I know, and then I was forced to pick a book out for you. No,
you were.
We picked books out for each other that might take us outside our comfort zone. Books that could be read fairly quickly, and then we can have a bit of a chat about them.
Yeah.
So I chose G.H.Wells The Invisible Man for Jess to read, which is a book I've not read myself, but I'd really like to. It's a sci-fi classic, isn't it? So you'll be able to tell me all about that in a minute. And Jess gave me to read a book called A Whole Life by Robert Seethaler, which I hope I'm pronouncing correct.
Yeah, I'm glad you attempted that and not me. I would have butchered that. But we had a few rules. The rules were you could not see what the other person was buying you until it was bought and placed into your hands. And it had to be under 150 pages because we wanted to read it in a weekend. We didn't want it to take quite a lot of our time.
And we succeeded on this occasion.
Yes, we did. Both of them. I think we're both quite happy with what we picked for each other, really.
So I'll go first, shall I?
Sure.
So A Whole Life. It's about a man named Andreas Egger, and hopefully I'm saying that right. Spelled Egger. So
it's a good shot.
Egger.
Yeah.
It's
Egger?
The book written.
Egger.
So Robert Seethaler was from Vienna and grew up in Germany, and the book was written originally in German and has been translated into English. Very, very well done, I think, as well, and very difficult to do, I would have thought, because it's very descriptive. There's next to no dialogue in this book, really.
So do you find anything gets mixed up, you're like, oh, that's definitely a translation error there, or have they done a pretty good job at going through it and fixing all of those?
No, they've done a great job, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about this man, Andreas, and he's a lovely man. He's quiet. He's he's a solitary man. He's an introvert. He doesn't really know how to interact with the modern world. It's set. He's born in around 1900 or so, although he's not sure about that. So he grows up at the time of the First World War, but couldn't be conscripted for the First World War due to his age. But he suffers hardship after hardship. He never knew his parents, and he grew up with a family who didn't really like him, and his would-be father beat him until he was 18, and one day he stood up to him and said, "If you hit me again, I'll kill you," and was told to get out. And that's how his life started. So he didn't have good relationships with people.
Yeah, not a great start in life, is it?
But he suffers hardship after hardship, this man. He works as a labourer. He has the gift of being very, very athletically fit and strong. So he works like building cable cars.
Oh, cool. Interesting job. Never hear of anybody building cable cars, do you?
But it was just when they sort of started, and in these German mountains where he lives, they start building ski resorts. But anyway, that's kind of a minor part of the story. So tragically, he falls in love and tragically loses his wife to an avalanche, and basically spends the rest of his life mourning this loss. And because of that, he can't connect with other people, and he gets conscripted when it comes around to the Second World War, and to go and liberate the East. Ends up in a concentration camp in Russia for many years after the Second World War ended, even, and doesn't even really know what's going on. He's just sort of caught up in it all. And one day when some Russian soldier comes around and says "Hitler kaput," he gets to go home, and he goes straight back home to his mountain village, because he doesn't know anything else, and he doesn't want to know anything else. It's kind of heartbreaking, the story, really. It's not one to read when you're feeling a bit melancholy.
No, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds very heavy and interesting. Very, very interesting, because there's lots of different dynamics going on there, like the dynamic of grief and then of trauma and war and just endless misery, really.
Yeah, he's got such potential and a gentle temperament, and deserves much better cards dealt to him than he had dealt to him. It certainly tugs at the heartstrings. But he's happy. He's happy with what he's. He constantly sees the positives in the small things, like sleeping under the stars and feeling the sun on the back of his neck. And it's an introvert's way to battle through some of life's great hardships. For me, it made me reflect on my relationships with family and friends, and why it's so important to keep them strong, because in the end he has nothing and nobody, and dies alone. So
yeah, it really hits home with everything, doesn't it? It makes you kind of reflect on what you leave behind and who you leave behind. Yeah.
So that was one that you made me step outside my comfort zone with. I would never have picked that for myself.
Well, no, to be fair, I'd never heard of the book before, and it was very much a little treasure, I think, because I did scour the bookshelves and looked at lots of different things and different genres, because you're quite a well-read man that...
You can say fussy, it's okay.
Yeah, you're fussy. So picking something for you, even though I know you so well and I know you inside and out, especially when it comes to books and reading, I was still a little bit apprehensive about all of this. And I'm really glad that in the end, even though it was a very difficult and hard read, you enjoyed it. Yeah? Well, I was given The Invisible Man by H.G.Wells, and obviously this is like one of those ones where like, what, you haven't read that? You call yourself well read and you haven't read that? Like, it's on all of the classic lists. It's on all of these 100 books to read before you die lists. And yeah, there is a definite reason why. I mean, as I was saying, but like I have a lot of reading going on. I'm doing a challenge of reading 20 books in 2020, and those are kind of books that I've put off reading or I should have read, or things that I just actually genuinely want to make the time to read because I'm interested in them. And then I also have a book club that picks a book once a month, so I'm reading about 32 books. So to add this one into the mix... I don't know
how you read so fast, to be honest.
I read more... I'm
incredible.
I'm reading multiple... I mean, at the minute, I think I have... If we include this, I have my book club book, I have a book I'm listening to, and I have a book I'm reading for my book 2020 list, and then I read this. So I have to be able to hold all of those stories in at once, but the stories that I'm reading, it's very easy to do that. They're very singular. So from going to reading, which my 20 book for 2020 at the moment is Lord of the Flies, which, as you know, is like, it's a kid's book, but it's not a kid's book. So far, I've not finished it yet. That's how I'm feeling.
Well, nowadays they read it at GCSE, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
I didn't when I was.
No, I didn't.
I had Mice and Men instead. I loved it.
That's what it was really, really good. So, but the language in that it's very childish because obviously of where it's set and how it's written and who's speaking, and it's very easy to follow language-wise. Whereas it just took me by surprise when it came to The Invisible Man. It was like, oh my goodness, we've got some Northern English dialect going on for a Northern Irish person living in England. Used to live in the north of England, now doesn't. It's like taking me way back. Like, it's one of those books that I just had to get into. So it took me a little while to really fully appreciate the story. But it's extremely well written, and yeah, it's definitely a classic for a reason, and it's something that I don't see very often. It's first-person narrative, which as in it's narrated as a story of somebody else telling the story, but it kind of jumps in at the same time.
Wait a minute, you mean, so it's I did this, I did that? Is that how it's written? In the first person?
A little bit, and then it kind of pauses that and goes into, at this point we must add. It's like it's retelling the story through like bits and pieces. It's plopped together from other, that's such a lovely word, plopped, and put together from other people. It's very, I'm probably not even explaining this very well. It's well written and it tells the story well. You get the gist of what's going on, but you don't fully get the mindset of the Invisible Man, because the Invisible Man is not a very nice man. In fact, he is a power-hungry, feels like he's entitled to everything, quote from the book, ass. And like, you don't see that until towards the end.
So is he using this as his tool to basically do whatever he wants to anyone he wants?
Yeah, I mean, he's had a hard life, so this is going to have some spoilers in it. You don't find this out until towards the end, so just skip on if you don't want to know anything about this. But he is an albino. The Invisible Man has not always been invisible. And he is an albino and he turns invisible because he's a scientist. And it talks you through all of that, and it's very, very interesting for his reason why he's had a very hard life and he thinks this will fix everything. And in fact,
what way is hard?
So he's gone through medical school, he changed to physics, and he feels like people are trying to steal his work, and he loses all his money and he steals from his dad, and his dad kills himself because the money he stole from his dad wasn't his dad's money. And he kind of loses all emotion and becomes this horrid, full of rage person that lashes out, which you do see from the start of the book. He lashes out at every single thing, like and it's uncontrollable, violent rage that he has. And that manifests as the story comes on to the conclusion, which I do want to keep a little bit of a secret because you want to read it, don't you? So,
making sure I read it, are you?
I am.
Holding a story hostage.
But it's the way it builds it up. Like, sometimes I'm like, why is it telling me about all this? Yada, yada, yada. But actually, it's a brilliant metaphor for being an other. Being an invisible man is like being an other. People become scared of the capabilities of being invisible. Like, everybody goes, I want to be invisible. Like, when you're a child, if you ask a child, superpower, invisibility, mind reading, flying, like, those are kind
flying
of like,
is mine.
Yeah, those are like the top kind of three. And I think to actually look at invisibility, yes, great, I can do all of these things and be secretive. But this book really shows the negative sides and the realities of what being invisible actually could mean for somebody. So I just enjoyed particularly the last half, and I came to appreciate the first half. At the end of my copy, there is a really great, like, 3-page review that talks about all of this and how like, looking at this from a 20th century eyes, you're kind of like, well, you know, yeah, it's okay. But see, it was written in 1897. Like, this was outstanding for its time. And it's one of the reasons why it is put on the classics list. So I'm very, very happy to have read this and would definitely recommend, I think.
There's another book he wrote, isn't there, which I've been meaning to read. I've got a copy of on the shelf, which I've just looked, was written 2 years earlier, which is The Time Machine, also by H.G.Wells, where those flesh-eating Morlocks came from, I think. If you've ever watched that Big Bang Theory episode where they buy that huge time machine from as a film prop. Excellent. Right, so we'll move on then. So is there anything you've been watching that you found interesting? I
watched Shutter Island for the first time a week ago, maybe now, and that was off of cough. That was off. That was off of your recommendation. You were like, no, you have to watch this. And I'm like, yeah, classic. I should watch this. Like, I seem to do everything apart from watch all of the things that I should do or read all of the things that I should do. But I thought, yep, got DiCaprio, Mark Ruffalo, yep, I'm sure. That's it, I'm in. And from the get-go...
Ben Kingsley as well.
Oh, Ben, yeah, can't forget him. But I was sat there in the opening scenes and I was like, okay, all right, poor lad, he's got seasickness. And yeah, he's not met this guy. What do you mean he's not met this guy before? Like, they're introducing themselves in the middle of the sea. When did they get on together? Like, immediately I was like, something is sketchy. This is like, what is going on?
Because they started asking each other questions like, who are you? Straight away. And when I was watching it for the third, fourth time, just went, yeah, that's obviously a bit strange. But
yeah.
You were very good. I didn't clock at all. I just thought that was sort of part of the storytelling tools they were using. But no, there's definitely a reason why that's the case.
Well, this is it. And for like the rest of the film, I was like, nope, I was coming up with these conspiracy theories and I was right and then I was wrong and then I was right again. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. And as a 27-year-old, I'm going to say to everybody out there, it's fine if you haven't read any of the classics or watched any of the classics, but do go and educate yourself.
Get on with it, yeah.
Because they are classics for a reason, and I've found out with both of the things I've just watched and read. So, what about you?
Yeah. Well, I was browsing through Netflix, and as is their wont, they tend to force things upon you by auto-playing the trailer, and I detest that. However, on this occasion, I was quite pleasantly surprised with it. It's a new exclusive they got, and it was I Am Not Okay With This. It was called, and we ended up watching it together, didn't we? It's about this girl, main character, called Sydney, and she's like high school sort of age, and she's going through life's tribulations of adolescence, family problems, and because her dad died, and not having a good relationship with her mum.
Yeah, being responsible for a very young brother.
Doesn't know where she's going with her sexuality.
Yep.
And I thought, okay, it's an interesting enough show, but then it goes off at a complete tangent. And,
very surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, and she starts exhibiting superpowers. And I'm like, what?
And you're not one for superpowers. You're not a big superhero fan either.
No, but it's shot in a very good way.
Yeah.
In a very, very clever way, I found. And the photography in the whole show is very good. I appreciate that. So then it turns into a series of episodes about her trying to understand these superpowers, and because she can't control it, and she ends up like blowing up the school library and trying to keep it from everybody, but eventually letting her friends in on it. And it's interesting. It was entertaining. I'd recommend. But there's only one series out so far.
One series, yeah. It's very recent as well.
Oh, and yeah, the last thing that happens in the last episode of the first season will make you go, good grief.
Yes.
That is awful.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, there's some... Yeah. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoy the way it looks like it's done in the late 80s, and then they show an iPhone. And you're like, oh, it's not. I love because you kind of get absorbed into that world, and it's like taken, like they can use modern day cliches and technology and things like that, but still transform you into, oh yeah, but this is like, it's really cool and muted colours, and we have
it's very 60s.
Yes,
I felt.
Yeah.
It was quite reminiscent of A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
Or it might be set a bit later actually, but it was that sort of era anyway. It's very lots of bright colours, because that's when they first invented like dyes and the colouring process for clothes, and first time you could get bright yellow tops and stuff.
Yeah.
So they've done some similar things with the styles, haven't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, very good.
And I really, really like that. And I like the way acting has gone for specifically young actors these days. Anything I've seen Netflix doing recently has quite a lot of young actors that have the young actors in it. I like their dialogue. I like how real it is. It feels like actually they've caught up with how me as a person would talk to my friends. And
I have to say they seem a lot older.
They do.
Than they really are in the show. Like, they're a lot more emotionally mature.
Yes.
But that just makes for better television, I suppose.
Yeah. But it was very highly recommend again.
It's got those two actors from It, isn't it? So the main character is Sydney Novak, and her name is Sophia Lillis.
Mm-hmm.
Lillis. Sophia Lillis. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yes, I've definitely not just looked that up. And also the other kid from It, who's called Wyatt Olaf. He's also in it as well. One of the other main characters. Yeah, very good.
Yeah. I have a question.
You have a question?
I have a question. What have you been listening to recently, John?
Well, I've not really been listening to any new music. I've kind of let that slip, listening to the same stuff when I do. But I have been listening to audiobooks. I think nowadays, because I have so little time with jobs and going to band and all that, I find listening to audiobooks, although some may consider it cheating, it's probably how I get the majority of my reading done these days. So new books tend to come that way. But this time, I actually listened to an old book. It made me very nostalgic. So I had a spare credit left on Audible. So I decided to go for Stephen Fry's version of one of the Harry Potter books, The Order of the Phoenix. There's a bit of a nostalgia kick. 'Cause I used to have tapes of them when I was a kid, when I was growing up, because I grew up and I was exactly the same age as the kids in the book at the time. So I was one of these that always, I was I stood outside W.H. Smith's at midnight to get the book.
It doesn't happen nowadays, does it? Like, people
No,
can
it doesn't.
pre-order
Get it off
online
Amazon.
and things. Yeah, we do, yeah.
Which is still cool.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm sure kids nowadays would do the
exciting.
same and just read the book from, like I did, from cover to cover,
Yeah.
without thought for sleep nor food nor going to the toilet. And so I just carried on reading until it was done. That was the done thing.
I haven't done that with a book in so long.
So I had them on cassette, and I used to listen to them on holiday on the beach or some hotel or whatever, and it brought me back to those times, simpler times. I had no responsibilities. Yeah, very, very good. And Stephen Fry is such a wonderful voice actor.
Yeah.
Wonderful, a lot of other things as well, but he does a great job.
Yeah, I think lots of people will agree with you there. He is, like, everybody I've met has listened to his versions of the book.
He manages to have a different voice for every single character, which is just incredible, really.
Yeah, it's a very, very talented, very talented.
You don't even get that in TV shows nowadays.
No.
Have you noticed in Family Guy, if you're familiar with it, Dr. Hartman is the same as Carter Pewterschmidt, Lois's father. It's exactly the same voice.
But they're sporadic enough that you don't really notice it unless you're looking for it.
Well, they actually addressed it in one episode after that was pointed out, I think, and then they talk to each other and they go, "We sound quite similar, don't we?" Yes. What of it? Well, I just thought I'd mention it.
Amazing.
So about you? Have you been listening to anything?
I have, and like you, I very rarely listen to music these days, unless it's like because I'm running or something like that. So I am also a very big fan of audiobooks, and like you, it's because I'm doing so much reading. It is the cheats way of getting it in, but I do take in all the information I would get as if I was reading the book. And at the minute I am listening to The Colour Purple, and I think I much rather would have listened to this book than read it, because again it uses like language to get you into the mindset of who the person is. So it uses like, it's very, I can't even remember how to describe it now. I go back to the term of colloquialisms, but that's just like,
so is it accents,
sayings.
or is
yes, accents, and it shows you something about the character, like the way the characters talk, unfortunately, is because they're uneducated. So that brings that element into this. And The Colour Purple, I'm listening to one that's narrated by the author as well, which I just love. I love the fact that I'm listening to a book the way the author wants me to hear it.
Yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're a good voice actor.
No,
I will
she
not
is,
name
though.
any names.
She's very, very, very good.
There's one particular one, which I'm sure you know what it is. It's narrated by its author, and it's not very good at all. But we won't tell you.
No. But I am absolutely loving that book at the minute. It is heartbreaking, interesting, and a massive learning experience. Well, it's one of those books that, again, is on the 100 books you should have read. But this one is also on the banned book list. It's banned from schools.
Or was at some point.
At some point, yeah. And
like Kill a Mockingbird or whatever.
Yes. It's a long, and it stands up to those as well, I'd say. I love Kill a Mockingbird. It's one of my favourite books. And I think this stands up to it. It's very hard to hear. Bit like the book that you've just read, a woman that has had the most terrible life, and she doesn't know any different. And I think very, again, like H.G.Wells as well, very innovative for its time. So I'm loving listening to that at the minute. But Yeah.
So how about writing? Are you writing anything?
I'm always writing something. Always. As a fanatic blogger of gracelessliving.co.uk.
Shameless plug.
I love writing. In another life, I wish I could have been an author, but I'm not that good. So, I write short posts weekly. And I write about 3 to 4 times a week. So I'm always writing. So yes, I'm writing loads of things. Go to the blog, read them, please. What about you?
Oh, well, I've been, ever since I was younger, I've sort of kept things throughout my life to remind me of like events and places and things I bought and concerts and those sort of things, like old ticket stubs and receipts and things like that. And I always sort of put them in a pile in a drawer and just say, oh, I'll sort that out one day. And it's like over a decade's worth now. So I finally sat down, got a new notebook, started to stick them in and write a few stories about them, which was quite therapeutic. And it's a great record to have. One for me to get all nostalgic when I'm a bit older, and two, I like to think my kids or something would find that interesting to look through and see what I did. I certainly found that very interesting with my parents. I found things they'd done or things they'd kept from their lives before I came along. And I liked doing it by hand, non-digitally.
Yeah.
In an analog escape from a digital world. I'm getting more and more of that these days. I've discarded the smartwatch. I've got rid of my social media accounts and
You're trying to go off grid, aren't you? Something a bit dodgy.
Not quite. I mean, these pieces of technology, our phones and stuff, are absolutely amazing pieces of kit, really. But the phone is for my convenience, not anybody else's.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, you're very good with all of that. Because for me, I'm quite the opposite. I'm very much online and things like that. But for you, I have a lot of respect for you. Like, I could not imagine life without Facebook or anything like that. Like, it might also be because I've got family far away, and it's a really easy way to contact people, and living away from friends and things like that. But, people would make it work. So there's something that keeps me holding on to it.
Yeah, I feel, if there's people you would make an effort to see, then you'll make an effort to see them and speak to them properly. Like ring them on the telephone or specifically text them, or you'll keep in touch if it's meant to be.
Yeah.
And I just can't. You mean you showed me your Facebook feed the other day, didn't you? And it was it was just full of advertising. And memes.
Very rarely.
It used to be people's opinions on stuff and posting their own pictures, but they seem to be very few and far between now.
Yeah, it's very rare now that I'll be scrolling down and it's like a video suggestion, an advertisement, a video suggestion, an advertisement. Someone's had a baby, woo! Like that's the kind of feed I'm getting these days, and it is because less and less. I think Facebook as a platform, people are just using it less and less as well. I know a lot of people that have just closed their accounts. So I think
kids don't use it anymore, do they?
It's all Instagram
TikTok or
TikToker,
Snapchat or something like that.
You're so old.
I know.
Speaking of old, someone is having a big birthday soon, aren't you?
I am. I'm looking forward to it, despite being old and decrepit and dying very soon.
It's okay. I've got the wheelchair on order.
But yeah, I am looking forward to it. But the main reason I'm looking forward to it is because of what I'm planning to do, rather than the day itself.
I think it's very you, but I think it's a fabulous idea. I think it's a really great idea for a 30th birthday.
So I'm going to drag a friend of mine up the mountain in Snowdonia, and we're going to do it in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Which
So
I've never done before.
when you say you're going to do it in the dark, a bit more detail.
So we're going to get up.
Yeah.
2:00 in the morning or so.
Yep.
Stay in Clanberis or something similar to that. Head up to the Penny Pass car park and go up the pig track. I think that's PYGG track. And the reason we're going to go on that one is because we've done it before. We're familiar with it, so we won't
take some aspect of danger out. And
a
little bit.
A
little bit.
Yeah, take some of the danger out, and we're going to take 2 head torches, each just as a bit of a backup, and hopefully get to the top before sunrise, so we can sit at the top and watch the sunrise over a bacon sandwich. I'm going to take all the gear up there. I'm going to have a gourmet bacon sandwich and lovely mug of Darjeeling. It's wonderful.
I think it's fabulous to be able to be right smack bang in the morning of your 30th birthday at the top of a mountain in one of the most beautiful landscapes with a good old bacon sandwich, a mug of tea, and your best friend. Like,
makes you feel alive, doesn't it?
It really does. And I will be sat at I'll not be sat, I'll be in my bed at the bottom of the mountain. Waiting for you to come back. You will but then you'll come back, and not just that, you've got the rest of the day as well. You'll probably go for what, like a nap maybe, and then you've got the evening as well. So it's like, I think it's a thoroughly very John way to spend a 30th birthday.
Yeah, I'll be back by 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning.
You will. You'll be turfing me out of bed.
And then steak and chips, bit of cake, done. That's all I want, really.
Yes, simple man with simple pleasures.
Yes.
And on that note, we're going to end our very first podcast and give you a little brief insight about what we're going to talk about next time. So, John, what's the topic of the next episode?
Well, it's how I'm not doing enough exercise, I think, and how we combat that. So. We'll see how it goes. I'm starting a challenge at raceatyourpace.co.uk to do a certain amount of miles in March.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. And I'm about 20 odd kilometres down out of 40, and it's the 15th. So I'm doing okay so far, but I've been a bit lax this week, so we'll see how the rest of it goes. Hopefully I'll be able to do it and I'll claim my medal.
Yeah, at the very end. Yeah, you're about halfway through. You're still on track. Me, on the other hand, it's been very, very different for me doing things like that, where I've done one run, and that's 3k out of the 25k that I need to do by the end of the month. And
best get on it.
Yeah, well, it's not really motivating me, and I wonder why. And these are all the kind of things we'll discuss in the next episode.
We'll talk about it then.
Yeah.
Excellent. Bye for now then.
Well, until next time. Bye.